Hello everybody, we have another game with the white pieces. Um, we're going to go 1c4. We are rated 855 against Sugar or Shug 863 but with a question mark, so that means provisional. He's either on his way up or down. He responds to c4 with d5. Now, I get a chance to trade my flank pawn for his central pawn, so that should be slightly good for me. Also, if he wants to recapture, he has to bring his queen out, which is, again, good for me because now I get to develop a piece with tempo, a free move. I love free moves. Here's another free move. Now he goes queen a5. This is kind of like what you do in the Scandinavian defense against one e4 on the first move, but doing it against c4 makes even less sense. It's even worse. So I'm just going to continue developing. So we'll start with the knights. We know where they want to go. Safe, solid choice to start with. Very flexible, and you know you can't go wrong with it. It said my opponent left the game, but now they're back. Okay, they're back and they play f5. Now I hate this move for so many reasons. Reason number one, you're not developing a piece. Reason number two, you're not getting closer to castling. Reason number three, piece moves before pawn moves. Reason number four, this weakens your king. It's diagonal. And also because you don't have a d pawn protecting the light squares, it actually weakens your light squares a lot. So the e6 and the e5 squares are very weak because there's no pawn that can defend them now. So that's something to keep in mind so I could take advantage of later. Okay, fine. He's wasting time. He's not doing anything but weakening his position. So I'm just going to do the natural thing and develop. I'm going to move my pawn to d4, control two squares on his side of the board, two dark squares. Yes, that self-pins the knight, but I could always go at bishop d2, so it's not a problem. He develops his knight behind the pawn. It's a weird setup. Not sure what he's doing. Maybe he's going to jump in and try to apply pressure here, but that's fine. The drawbacks to this move, well, it's hard to go wrong developing your knight to its most natural square. So I'm going to break the pin, x-ray the queen, and now my knight's free to move. And if he tries to add pressure to it, I'm free to capture the knight and I don't have to worry about anything because his queen is hit. So this is just a solid move. It may not be the computer's top choice because it's more passive in nature. There's definitely more aggressive moves you can do here. But it's solid, it's perfect. It comes with x-ray threats. You can't really go wrong with it either. So he instantly goes e6, like he doesn't even care or consider my moves and what I'm doing. That's fine. So now his queen is x-rayed. So this means that maybe I have some type of cool knight jump, and maybe I can win something. If I jump my knight here, it's not attacking anything. If I jump my knight here, it hangs. If I jump my knight here, he has to, let's say he moves his queen or blocks with the bishop. I could trade knights. I could, I could trade knights and mess up his pawn structure even worse. However, that if I bring his pawn there, I can't jump my knight into e5 because his pawn defends it. So I'm going to leave this x-ray now and wait for a better opportunity to move my knight. Right now I'm just going to continue developing with e3, which opens up my light square bishop to attack his weak backwards pawn and prepare for castling. And now you can see my position is harmonious, my knights are out, my pawn chain solid, my bishop has nice scope, everything's fine. Black develops his dark squared bishop and prepares castling. This is a good move. It develops, it controls the center. That's what we want from the opening. I'm now going to you do have other options. For example, this x-ray is still on, so now you have the option of, let's say, jumping your knight here, and you can go for the bishop. He can move it again. You could take the knight. It'll be a waste of tempo for him because he moved the bishop twice, whereas in the other line he did it in one move. I'm still going to leave the x-ray on and just develop and eye this pawn. If he castles, I'll also be eyeing his king. But instead of castling, he pushes the pawn that I was attacking and attacks the center. What is the drawback of this move? Well, well, not again, I keep doing that. It undefends light squares. Also, he's opening the center, but his king is in the center. His king is much less safe than mine, right? I'm more well developed. My pawns are still in front of my king. I didn't push them too far up like he did. And now if I want, I can take this pawn and win the bishop pair. Alternatively, I can try to utilize this x-ray, and I might have a good move now. Let's say we jump our knight in the center. This opens up the x-ray, right? And the queen is hit. Now if he blocks with the bishop, the knight double hits that square, so the bishop's hanging. So he can't do that. So if you jump your knight in, where can his queen go? It can't go here, or here, or here, or here, right? The queen defends these squares, the pawn defends these squares, the rook defends this, the knight will be defending this, the pawn defends this. So is his queen trapped? So I jump my knight in. Does he have a different resource? Can he take my knight? I take the queen. Yeah, he has nothing. I don't think. I'm just going to go for this. Now that I patiently waited for a better opportunity to exploit the x-ray, it's much better than to just use it on the first turn just because. If you don't really have like a pawn to win or some real benefit from it, it's better just to keep it there and wait. And who knows, your opponent might, it goes to the back of their mind and they slip up like this guy did. Now I was hitting his queen, right? But I think when you look at this and you're new to chess, you see the knight move in the center and you just look at that. Like, you don't even consider the queen on the side. But obviously that was my true threat. He doesn't see it or care. I'm sure he would care if he did see it. And instead he just goes and takes my pawn. I'm obviously going to take the queen. You could throw in this taking the knight because it comes with check. So you get to additionally ruin his pawn structure first. That would have been nice. Okay, so he goes b6 attacking my bishop. Very bad move. Why? Why don't I like it? 1, does not develop a piece. 2, does not get him closer to castling. I mean, it's always the same thing, right? And so this pawn moves only weaken your position. So you need a good move to make a pawn move. So this just weakens his position, weakens his light squares even more. But since I'm up a queen, I'm just going to take his knight with check, trading more stuff, ruining his pawn structure. He doesn't even take back. How is this guy rated? Oh, I guess there's a question mark, which means he's probably going to drop a lot lower. Now that he didn't take my knight, I'm just going to bring it back with check because I saved it for free. And now he walks into other discoveries, so I ask myself, do I have a mating net? Not in the next 2 moves, so okay, fine. I might as well just use it to win material. What's the best way? I was gonna say, if you take this pawn, it's a double check. Wherever he moves his king, you just take the rook. You're up even more material. So this guy just resigns. Thank God. So he just hangs his queen. He's not tactically alert. He moved his queen in the opening. He's moved his pawns in front of his king. He broke all the principles. It's like he was trying to lose. But now we're up against Jay the Killer, and that name is intimidating. He's rated 981. I start with c4. He goes for c6, creating a battle for the light squares immediately. I'm going to go g3 and put my bishop here anyway. He develops his king's knight. Solid move. Again, hits the light squares. I'm going to develop my bishop and also hit the light squares. So now we're fighting for the light squares. He goes d5, kind of caro-kann-ish setup. Again, fighting for the light squares. You could take this pawn. It's not terrible. You could also let him take. I don't know what I want to do. We could take. We could just develop, though. I don't know. If I take... I wonder what he's going to take with. Let's take and see what he takes with. He might take with the knight. He fooled me. Jay the Killer is coming for me. He's sacrificing material, forcing me to waste time making pawn moves, and now he's coming for my king. He's sneak attacking me. He wants to checkmate me. I don't like where this guy's head is at. Therefore, I'm just going to develop my queen's knight, defends his pawn. If he goes to try to checkmate me, which of course he does, because why would you do anything else? I have the option of blunting the coordination with e3. We've seen something similar in a different game. I also have the option of blunting the coordination with pawn to d4. I also can do what I did in that other similar game, which was knight e4, defending the square this way. Although that seems a little more suspicious here because it can be kicked and you kind of need it to defend checkmate. So we rely on one of the pawn moves. Which one of the pawn moves? I'm going to go e3. If you go d4, he can immediately try to challenge it. I mean, e5 would be nice for him, but you have en passant. But e3 is an unassailable pawn, which means that no matter what he does, you're going to have time to kick the knight. You don't have to worry about any of his pawns making contact with it. Like in the d4 pawn, he has to, you know, it's just a more tactical situation. And so now his knight doesn't belong here. The queen pressures it. So if he makes a move like develop the knight here, he loses this knight. So it's important. Did I call it? Did I call it? Did I call it? So he now obstructs, what's the drawback of the move? He now obstructs his own line of sight to his knight. So now we just have to make sure that if we take the knight, there's no knight discovery that hurts us. He could probably jump his knight into e5. We'll move our queen to e2 or back home. No, e2 to defend the d3 square. And that should be fine. So we're just going to take the free piece, because he was kind enough to give it to us. And the game is over. So how do we convert? As predicted, he went knight into the center, attacking the queen two different ways. I just want to go here and it will have a nice vision of all these light squares. And then we can kick the knight with d4 next move when we feel much more solid and comfortable with our position, because he has nothing developed. So he makes an alpha move and develops with tempo on my queen. There's 3 different pieces I can put there. Which piece should we put? Well, you could do the pawn. It looks ugly because it blocks your bishop and your knight. It comes with tempo. Is that tempo worth it? Probably not. It's much better to get piece activity. Putting the bishop here, I don't see a reason to trade my strong bishop. if I don't have to. And we need to develop this knight anyway, so it makes much more sense to just bring a new piece out and prepare castling. If you think of it like you're gonna go and get into a fight, would you rather bring 2 of your friends or 6 of your friends? Obviously 6. Chess is the same way. So why do these people keep playing with fighting with only 2 friends? Bring the other guys. Call up some more homeboys, right? So he castles long. What's the threat? He's just being more aggressive. He's developing rooks on the central file. What's the drawback? Not a real drawback other than it doesn't create a severe threat, so I have time to do what I want. I'm going to put the question to this bishop, right? You could castle here. You could go d4 here. And maybe I will actually do one of those. You could also go h3 here. I think all of those would be fine. I'm just ignoring this tension. I don't really care. d4 actually looks really strong. So I'm going to go d4, putting a pawn in the center, creating a square for my bishop, attacking the knight, and maybe he wants to do this. I mean, if you're going to choose between h3 and d4, d4 is the more principled move that does a lot more, fights for the center, and also kicks a piece, so it's clearly the better move. But now that you have d4 in, h3 and castling are options. These are the next moves I'm thinking about in some order. So he retreats his knight. What does this threaten? Nothing. It has no jumps. It's a terrible piece. What's the drawback? Well, it's a terrible piece. So maybe he should have traded, but he's down a piece, so he's going to lose either way. In this situation, now that he moved his knight away from the defense of this pawn, we have this option of taking, and if he takes with the pawn, that's obviously bad for his king. If he takes with the queen, that's bad because it lines up here and here, giving me more tactical possibilities. However, I want to put the question to the bishop first, because this will be even stronger, like if he doesn't pressure this diagonal. Also, if he goes here, it blocks his rook, so it's very passive. And then I'm definitely not taking, because you don't want to develop his bishop. So he does go here, trying to stay active. There's so many options. For example, you can go castle. You can go g5. You can go very strong move e4, and I meant g4, not g5. e4 looks super strong, right? Solidifying your center, attacking this piece, forcing it to go passive. But then again, you can take this pawn. If he takes with the queen, now that his bishop's not here, I wanted to go knight h4, sneak attack the queen, and the knight defends the bishop. Of course, he'll just move his queen, so that's all just fancy. So I'm going to do e4, probably the most principled move. Now I have this beautiful pawn center and an extra pawn, so it's even better than a perfect pawn center. It comes with tempo. What's the downside of this move? Well, it weakens the dark squares. Doesn't matter. No, because this is protected, and this one is protected as well as I can develop my bishop to defend it further. So it's not a drawback that matters right now. He retreats his bishop because he doesn't want to lose it. This is its only free square. So now what do? I think now's the perfect time, because we did all the beautiful moves with tempo, to castle and just get ready to crush him. So that's what we're gonna do. And now I just want to get a rook to the c file, since it's already semi-open and possibly it'll be an open file soon. I want to leave his knight here since it's terrible. Yes, these pawns block my diagonal, but at any time this is on, I can push. If there's ever a tactical situation, I can open that bishop up, probably at a moment's notice. So, and now he wants to open up the d file for his rook, so he retreats his bishop. The downside is it's a terrible move because now his rooks are even further away from connecting. He's hiding in the corner, so he's not putting any pressure on my position, so I can do whatever I want. Fine. So what do I want to do? Well, I definitely want to develop my last pieces. I could go here and protect the pawn, but realistically, he can add pressure. I kind of want to go here, but I definitely don't want to give him the trade for the knight. So just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to keep it here, not to give him the trade. X-ray the queen in some line. Maybe he'll think this is undefended and hang. Okay, so he takes voluntarily. What's the threat? He's just threatening to open his pieces a little, become more active. The drawback, well, he's opening the c file for me. I could take this pawn with a tempo on the queen and opening the c file for my rook, so that looks very strong. Taking with the pawn, I meant taking with the knight. I don't even know what I said, but I meant taking with the knight. Taking with the pawn is I mean, it's probably fine, but I don't see why you wouldn't take with the knight, right? It makes way more sense. So I'm going to do that because it comes with tempo and it opens up for my rook. And look at his pieces. Garbage, 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 garbage. The only things that are doing anything are queen rook. So he sees how dire his situation is. He sees how strong that knight is, and he makes the exchange sack. I'm not going to say that's a bad move. It practically makes sense because that was a very strong knight in the center, defended by a pawn. I'm not going to throw in this check and help his king run to safety. He develops his bishop and immediately skewers me. This would be a blunder on my part, since I can't interpose a piece. But I can move this rook with check. I don't need to move my a rook. So, as well as I can move my queen with check. So you can move either piece with check to get out of this. I'm actually going to do the queen, just because it's such a strong piece. It has so many options. And then I'll put a rook behind it after. It'll be even stronger. For example, if he goes to the side and I back it up with a rook, he can't move his bishop, which means I'm actually threatening checkmate in one. For the sake of time, I'm going to do it. This, I have less than a minute on my clock, so I have to go and talk fast. I move the rook out of danger while creating a checkmate in one threat. So is it a defensive move, right? Because he was attacking my rook? No, it's an aggressive move. And if he only pays attention to, oh, he's moving his rook because it was attacked, he's going to do what he did right here and not realize, he's not going to ask the first question that is on the screen, what is the threat? If he had only said, what is white's threat? Well, okay, what do I see? Well, checkmate in one, and you immediately, then your candidate moves immediately change because of the questions you ask yourself. If you're playing chess without asking questions, you're kind of just making moves based on visual information, and that's not going to take you very far, unless you do that in time scrambles when you have 10 seconds left. You make like the best visual move or whatever. But I'm just going to checkmate this guy, and we took 20 points from the killer. Oh no, he lost 20, but we only took 13. So those were two good games. Hopefully you can still see the patterns. They're still not developing. They're still not connecting their rooks. The most simple things. We're almost at this guy was almost 1,000, and they're not even close to doing, right? So in your games, just keep asking yourself every move, what is the threat of my opponent's last move? What is the drawback? And that's just it doesn't necessarily have to be a threat. What is the threat / idea, right? It could just be to develop. It's not like he's checkmating you. And by what is the drawback, it's another way of saying what observation can I make on that move? Oh, it undefends this square. It's just an observational mode. You do that with questions. Okay. You can submit your games to rapid games to me in my Discord. Links somewhere in the description. Goodbye.